After the statement of the Assembly of Experts, massive crowds entered the streets to express support for Iran's supreme leader, the armed forces, and the resistance in Lebanon. So you see that there are some people in Iran that are worried that maybe too many of these red lines are being crossed, that were stipulated in the MOU, and that dominance needs to be reasserted. Some of you may have noticed that there are these minor attacks in comparison to what we were previously witnessing in Iran taking place, despite the fact that there is a memorandum of understanding which was recently signed by the President of the United States, or J.D. Vance, maybe it was, and Ghalibaf, okay, one of the key negotiation leaders for the Islamic Republic of Iran. So what's the deal with this? I'll break it down. Pretty simple what's going on right now. The U.S. is violating the deal, as is Israel. Who could have guessed? Who could have guessed, right? Now, I guess in the eyes of some people in Iran, the violations are maybe not severe enough to the point where they think that this isn't an issue that can be solved, can't be worked out. Others in Iran feel a different way, and we are going to get into not just what is going on, but some of the thoughts of people in Iran regarding these matters. Okay, so this new iteration of strikes, which there's been several since the MOU was signed and before it was actually officially signed, but the newest iteration of strikes took place for a pretty simple reason, okay? We reported here not too long ago that Oman, for the first time, had come out and publicly stated that they would actually implement a joint control structure over the Strait of Hormuz, where, in fact, Oman and Iran would be jointly monitoring and regulating the Strait of Hormuz and collecting tolls, which they won't actually call tolls. They're calling them, environmental protection fees, whatever. Then we got this news on June 25th, so 4 days ago, that without consultation with Iran, the Sultanate of Oman issued a statement announcing the establishment of a temporary maritime corridor in the southern Strait of Hormuz. So saying, we, Oman, are going to allow ships to pass through, the Iranian maritime regulatory body, and you're not going to have to pay any sort of environmental protection fees. Many vessels were already secretly passing through the strait by using Omani territorial waters, but it was not coordinated and there was a risk of collisions and accidents. So Oman decided to make an official transit plan for this corridor. The Omani route was already not accepted by Iran as valid, so the formalization of this corridor seems to have been the final straw. The IRGC Navy released a statement criticizing this move, which was done without any consultation. Okay, now, not too long after that, we saw this. Attention all vessels in the Persian Gulf and Sea of Oman. This is the IRGC Navy warning all of you that transiting in the Strait of Hormuz is only possible with IRGC Navy permission and designated routes. If any vessel attempts to transit the strait without our permission, with AIS turned on or outside the designated routes, it will be responsible for any consequences and any danger. Message was heard loud and clear. Initially, we saw reports that some ships were turning back around following this IRGC Navy announcement, but not all of them decided to listen. IRGC Navy then struck on June 25th at 6:47 p.m. local time in Iran, a vessel 7.5 nautical miles off the coast of Oman. The vessel tried to pass through the Strait of Hormuz on this Omani route that was being designated by the Sultanate of Oman. Iran then informed the U.S. through the newly established Hormuz de-confliction communication channel that it had bombed a tanker. The United States reportedly said, "What the hell? What do you mean?" upon hearing the news. Well, I think they should know what this means, because obviously it was the United States that put the pressure on Oman to go back on their word and allow ships to pass through the Sultanate of Oman's, pre-approved travel channel. Wow. Shout out Super Gaston. Thank you for the generous super chat. Appreciate you. The peace agreement is the friends we've met along the way. Yes. It's beginning to look like that. W's in the chat for Super Gaston. Thank you so much. Okay. Now, we then saw this. Not too long after we saw the strike report on the vessel. U.S. Central Command announced it carried out multiple airstrikes on southern Iran. This marks the first direct violation of the ceasefire on Iranian soil since the MOU was signed. The U.S. says the airstrikes were carried out in response to Iran's attack on a vessel in the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. So that was June 26th at about midnight on June 26th, so almost the 27th. U.S. officials claim that the U.S. aircraft attack targeted 4 Iranian targets, radar installations, as well as missile and drone storage in Sirik, Iran. The IRGC Navy issued a statement following this attack. They said, however, America, by provoking various sides, sought to violate this commitment in the MOU, and the necessary response was given. The given was apparently some sort of a response, which you'll see in a second. Iran then struck another oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz, which was also trying to pass. The response you'll see is pretty clear, actually, okay? Now, this is where we get into something a little bit interesting in the story, because not everyone in Iran feels as though the red lines are being upheld firmly enough. We'll put it that way. Iran's Assembly of Experts has issued an unprecedented and important statement in support of the Supreme Leader, Syed Mojtaba Khamenei, in a critical letter to government officials signed by 62 out of 86 members of the country's highest clerical body. The assembly calls upon the negotiators to respect their leader's red lines. The statement is as follows. We urge that, considering the experiences of past damaging negotiations, the negotiators will be extremely careful of the tricks and deceitful and evil enemy and pay attention to the fact that observing the leader's red lines is a religious obligation and violating them is not permissible under any circumstances. 2, we emphasize the need to pursue revenge for the martyrdom of our dear leader and that Trump and Netanyahu must face justice by any means necessary. So this is kind of indicating that the Assembly of Experts, the highest clerical body in Iran, feels as though revenge has not been met yet. The threshold for revenge has still not been met for the martyrdom of the martyr Ali Khamenei, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Number 3, and any breach of the MOU must be responded to immediately. Therefore, considering the continuation of ceasefire breaches by the Zionist regime in Lebanon and the failure to withdraw from the occupied territories, the opening of the Strait of Hormuz is contrary to the obligations of the officials and is considered a strategic mistake. You will see in a second, this has been reversed. The Strait of Hormuz is once again closed effectively, and this was done just today. We remind you again that according to the obligatory guidance of the Supreme Leader, the country's nuclear rights should not be discussed nor disputed and should be completely excluded from the negotiations. Now, this point is very important. You might remember that Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, he came out and said that he had some concerns with the process that was being engaged with on the negotiations for the MOU. His concerns from political figures within Iran apparently, though it was not outlined in the letter, but apparently had to do with the fact that the nuclear rights question was going to be discussed with the United States. It doesn't mean that certain promises were made regarding Iran's nuclear program, that they were going to negotiate about it. The phrasing was very particular from the Iranians, that nuclear file would be discussed, not negotiated. So in this Assembly of Experts letter, they said that nuclear rights should not be discussed nor disputed. Okay. Number 5, establishing management over the Strait of Hormuz, receiving compensation for war damages, the release of frozen assets, lifting all sanctions, and the withdrawal of U.S. forces from the region are inviolable demands of the Supreme Leader and the people, and they must be pursued. New reports from today are coming out that 6 of the $12 billion in frozen Iranian funds in Qatar will only be released if the Iranians are willing to negotiate about the nuclear file. So this is a clear and open, backtrack on what the MOU stated. So we'll see what happens. There's going to be a meeting supposedly in Doha this week. Number 6, officials should avoid any statements that cause the enemy to become more arrogant and make the country appear weak and helpless. Number 7, everyone, especially the esteemed government officials, knows that in the system of wilayat al-faqih, guardianship of the jurist, the opinion and perspective of the leaders is the final word, and when informed of his definitive opinion, no official can or should act contrary to his opinion. Number 8, based on all evidence, the enemy is merely seeking an opportunity to deploy additional forces and buy time for certain matters, including the upcoming midterm elections. After that, there will be a high probability of a new attack, and the issues raised in the MOU should be resolved within the stipulated 30-day and 60-day deadlines. Now, this is what I think. I think that, yes, the U.S. is still planning everything that we have warned about on this very program, but Trump realized it would be politically convenient to wait until after the midterm elections to pull what he assumes will be the final trigger. Okay, I do believe they are going to wait until after the midterm elections, and I don't necessarily believe this MOU is going to go anywhere. Okay, I don't believe that. I do think that after the midterms, we are going to see absolute madness. It could be even earlier. Who knows? Could be earlier. I think, what does earlier look like? What could be earlier? Earlier could be September. Earlier, we could potentially see things start to get hot in September. I do think it's going to be after the midterm elections that we see, a recontinuing of the war. We see strikes on Iran again, potential invading of Iran. But in September, it is possible that things will get hot again. It is possible that even not in Iran, but maybe in Iraq, September, October, we'll see things get hot. I don't know. It's just a lot of weird things going on in the region right now. Number 9, we ask the dear nation to continue their steadfast presence on the streets, and while preserving sacred unity and avoiding any action that disrupts this unity, they should not pay attention to the divisive words of some ignorant people who seek to limit this divine mission. The presence of the people is essential and decisive as long as the supreme leader deems it necessary, and that is the important part of that. So, and you will see here that the people are active on the streets. After the statement of the Assembly of Experts, massive crowds entered the streets to express support for Iran's supreme leader, the armed forces, and the resistance in Lebanon. So you see that there are some people in Iran that are worried that maybe too many of these red lines are being crossed, that were stipulated in the MOU, and that dominance needs to be reasserted. Dominance needs to be asserted once more. Red lines cannot be violated, okay? So this is obviously going to be putting pressure on those that want to try and work through the mechanisms of diplomacy rather than Shahhead, okay? Now, we also had this after these statements on June 28th, and the early morning hours at 1 a.m. local time in Iran, U.S. airstrikes near Strait, yet again in southern Iran. The U.S. Central Command confirmed the attacks on Iran, saying it was in response to the attack on a commercial vessel, which took place earlier on the 27th. In the later hours of the 27th, 2 strikes also took place on Keshem Island. A U.S. official told Fox News that the strikes on Iran are larger than they were the previous night. We do have some videos of the strikes here. You guys can find it online. I don't know if I can show that. Probably better not to show it just for community guidelines, trying to be safe here. But according to CENTCOM, 10 different locations were hit. They appear to be military targets that were published, which were hit. Okay. Then 3 hours later, we saw sirens in Kuwait. Initial reports of at least 2 impacts in Kuwait from Iran. Alerts also sounded in Bahrain half an hour prior to that. President Trump then threatened Iran on social media, saying United States aircraft just struck Iranian missiles in drone storage locations and coastal radar sites for violating the ceasefire agreement. Again, it is very possible that they will never learn. There may come a point when we are no longer able to be reasonable and will be forced to militarily complete the job that we are very successfully started. If that happens, the Islamic Republic of Iran will no longer exist. So this is obviously another clear violation of the MOU. Trump is making his threats of greater escalation and a return to war amidst the MOU, amidst the negotiations. This was one of the reasons why we did not see any sort of pictures or joint photos between Vance and Mr. Arakchi, the foreign minister of Iran, while they were in Islamabad last week, because Trump started tweeting out this stuff that he's going to return to war, if Iran doesn't make the right decisions. Then, as a last point regarding the Iran updates, we have this right here. Iran has requested a meeting. It will take place tomorrow in Doha. The United States says it will not unfreeze any Iranian funds unless progress is made on the nuclear file. Again, worth noting, it was specifically agreed that nuclear matters would not be discussed at this stage of the MOU talks. This was something very clear from the Iranian side, okay? Iran's MFA spokesman Ismail Bakai confirms that Iranian technical teams will travel to Doha tomorrow to follow up on the implementation of the MOU. The Iranian delegation will not hold direct talks with the Americans, despite Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner also arriving in Doha on the same day. And the Iranians have also come out to say that they were not the ones that requested this meeting. So who knows? This is the update that we have, though. There will be a meeting tomorrow. Indirect talks will take place in Doha, Qatar, regarding the MOU. What they'll be discussing, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Needless to say, we are not surprised, yet again, that the U.S. is violating the terms of yet another agreement. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.